Hello and welcome to this video. If you are new here, I'm Lydia and I'm a fertility awareness educator. I like to make videos helping you to know your cycle and learn more about periods, fertility, and anything related to that. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you how I discovered that I had heavy periods. So I'm going to share some of the tools that I used to help me figure this out and some ideas that you can do, as well as giving you information just about how you figure out if your period is heavy, because there are a couple of things that if you are experiencing them, it probably means that you have heavy periods. So without further ado, let's get into this video. I'm going to start off by talking about how I got diagnosed. Before we get there, I want to give you some context. So I started getting my periods at the age of 13, and at first my periods weren't too bad, but they just continued to gradually get worse and worse. I started experiencing more and more pain and heavier periods, but I never knew how to figure out, is this heavy, is this not? I'd even gone to the doctor twice about my periods, specifically about the pain that I was experiencing on my periods, and I was dismissed each time. But I also was asked if I experienced heavy periods, and the problem was I didn't know how to answer that because I didn't know how to figure out if my periods were heavy or not. And when I would ask, they would just be like, well, you would know if they were heavy. And they would give me some really vague markers of it. So I just always said, no, I don't have heavy periods. After the second time that I went to the doctor about my painful periods, I ended up just accepting it is what it is. It wasn't until I was 21, it was October of 2023, that I decided to start a fertility educator certification. Through this certification, I learned so much information that I believe every woman should know, which is why I'm creating videos like this to share it with you. One of the things that I was learning and incorporating through my own life was about tracking my periods in depth. I wasn't just logging the days that I was bleeding. I was keeping track of how many period products I was using each day. I was adding up the total, and I was converting how many period products I had used into how many milliliters of blood I had lost. This was kind of an annoying task to do, but it was really helpful because it helped me to see how much blood I was losing specifically. So it wasn't until then that I found out that I had heavy periods. So speaking of tracking your periods and how many milliliters you're bleeding, let's talk about how you can know if you're experiencing heavy periods. So there are a couple of ways that you can tell if you are experiencing heavy periods. The one that I like the most, because it is very objective, is the amount of milliliters that is normal and abnormal to be losing on your period. A healthy range of blood loss on your period would be 40 to 80 milliliters. So anything less than that would be considered light periods, like lighter than normal. And anything more than 80 milliliters would be considered a heavy period. So this is something that you can find out by keeping track of how many period products you are using each day and adding up that total at the end of your period. So the other tip that you can use is if you are bleeding for more than 7 days, then it kind of automatically puts you in that category of probably having heavy periods, just because the amount of time that you are bleeding is indicating you're probably losing too much blood. So if you weren't keeping track of how many period products you were using, but you were keeping track of how many days you were bleeding, and you, for instance, were bleeding for 9 days, then you more than likely have a heavy period. The third thing would be clots. If you have noticed clots when you're on your period that are the size of a quarter or bigger, that is indicating that you are probably experiencing heavy bleeding, because some clots are definitely normal to experience on your period, but if they are that big, and especially if you are noticing multiple of them, that can indicate this is not normal. So that's also something that would be good to be keeping track of, in addition to how much blood you're losing and how many days you are bleeding. The fourth and final tip I have for you is how quickly you are going through products. If you are having to wake up in the middle of the night to change your pad or tampon because you will otherwise bleed through, then you are probably experiencing a heavy period. And if you are having to change your pad or tampon more than every 2 hours for like multiple hours, then you are probably experiencing a heavy period. You should not be losing that much blood that quickly. So that is all for the condensed version of what you can be doing to figure out if you have heavy periods. So now let's get into specific tools and resources that I used. There are several resources that I used and that I would recommend that you use when it comes to keeping track of your period, figuring out if you have a heavy period or not. One of these would be a fertility awareness chart that allows you to track all kinds of information: basal body temperature, cervical fluid patterns, your bleeding, and it has room for notes as well for each individual day. This is something that I have actually created because I wanted something really specific, and I do offer it on my Etsy store, so I'm very, very excited about that. My Etsy store is something really new that I've created, and I'm so excited to be able to help you. The second thing that's used in combination with that is a cycle recap page. So this is where I would go and I would put all of the most important information from the previous cycle onto this cycle recap so I could easily keep track of some of the most important things. For example, how many milliliters of blood I had lost. This just gives you a really quick and easy way to be going through and comparing from month to month to see how your cycles are trending. For instance, if your bleeding is getting heavier, if it's staying pretty much the same, or if it's trending lighter and getting better. Once again, this is a tool that I have created and I offer on my Etsy store. I offer that one in combination with the fertility awareness chart, and it's on sale right now for $1.50. So if that sounds useful for you, I highly recommend that you go check that out. Everything will be linked in the description, of course. The other tool that I used, this is a tool that I used from the very start. It is the Fem app. I'm sure you probably use some type of app to track your periods, and that is great. It doesn't have to be this one, but what I recommend is that you track specifics. I want you tracking how many period products you're using and what types they are. For example, if you're using regular pads and you went through 3, you would say 3 regular pads. Or if you are using a menstrual cup, you want to look at how many milliliters it can hold. If, for instance, it holds 20 milliliters, then you know that if you fill it about halfway, then that's about 10 milliliters. And I want you to keep track of those specifics. And it's just easiest to do that in an app. I also use the paper form to keep track of things, but I enter it first into my app because it's just easy to do that as it's happening throughout the day. And then at the end of the day or at the end of my period, I transfer it all onto paper. That's just something that I like to do. But the Fem app is completely free, FEMM, and it's a little purple app. I will put a picture up here of what it looks like, and I'll also show you here what it looks like and how I use it to keep track of my bleeding and everything else. The final tool that I have for you as a resource I'm super excited about because it's something I created really recently. This would be the ultimate tool if you are looking for something specifically to track your periods and figure out if you have a healthy flow, if you're having light periods or heavy periods, or if they are in that normal range. This essentially has 2 pages. One page is mostly information. It gives you some of the conversions so you don't have to do the hard work of figuring out, okay, how many milliliters does this pad hold? I give you that, very simple, in a table. And then I also give you space if you have like a menstrual cup or disc or something like that. So you can, do your research. You should be able to just look at that container or look at that website and figure out how many milliliters, like the capacity is of the product, and then you can write that one down there and have it to easily reference it. So I have that table in there. I have information to tell you, what is normal or not, like the healthy bleeding range. I also have a chart on there that helps you to understand the flow type for each day. For example, like how many milliliters of blood loss is a light day, is a moderate day, and a heavy day. So that can be something helpful as well, because if you're experiencing like 5 heavy days of bleeding. That's a lot. I also give you a table to be keeping track of each day of your period, how many products you used, what type of flow that day was, and then a spot for you to add up your total milliliters of blood lost, and you can see if it falls within the healthy range or not. Once again, if you're interested in that, that will be linked in the description, and I would be so excited if you would check out any of my products. Even if you're not ready to buy right now, if you would check out my store on Etsy, I would be so grateful. It's really hard to get it up and running, and it's really hard to get your first sale, so I definitely appreciate any support from you guys. Now I want to talk to you guys about how my cycles have been improving and what I have been doing to help them. So my very worst cycles that I had been tracking, I was losing about 125 milliliters of blood. And remember, the healthy range is 40 to 80 milliliters, so well into the heavy period range. Since about May, my periods have been consistently in the 80 to 90 milliliter range. So on the high end of normal, but much closer to that normal range and sometimes within it. And I feel really good about that progress, and I definitely feel like they are improving. As far as things that I'm doing to improve my cycles, I did find a really good OBGYN in the summer of 2024, and that helped me so much. She actually helped me get to the root of my issues. We figured out that I had elevated prolactin levels, and prolactin is a hormone that in women who are pregnant or lactating, it's good because it suppresses the hormonal cascade that is happening in order to make ovulation happen and in order for, conception to happen. If you are pregnant, if you are breastfeeding, you don't need that to happen. So prolactin both helps to produce milk, and it also suppresses the hormonal cascade. This is not a good thing if you are not pregnant or breastfeeding. And there's several things that can cause this. Stress can cause that. Stress comes in a wide variety of forms. Stress could be working out too much, not eating enough, not getting enough sleep. There's all kinds of forms of stress. High prolactin levels can also be due to a tumor in the pituitary, and that was something that we ruled out, so that wasn't the cause. So what my doctor recommended was that I start taking Vitex. This is something that you may have heard about because people do recommend it a lot for all kinds of cycle things. I have been taking 1,000 milligrams a day since about August. So it's been close to 5 months at this point, and I do feel like it is making a difference. I'm gonna show you up close what brand it is that I'm using and what it looks like. 1,000 milligrams is 2 capsules of this. Some of the other things that I'm taking include just a general multivitamin to make sure that I'm supporting my body, because it is important for us to understand that our periods and our cycle health is not just this lone thing in and of itself that we need to fix. It is a part of our whole body. So of course we need to make sure our whole body is healthy and functioning well to make sure that our cycle is functioning well. So that's also why making sure you're getting plenty of rest, movement, a little bit of exercise, good food, all of these things are going to benefit you and benefit your cycles and your periods. Another thing that I have actually started taking more recently is an omega-3 supplement. Omega-3s are important because the standard American diet actually has far more omega-6s compared to omega-3s. There should be this ratio where we have higher omega-3s than omega-6s, but the standard American diet has it completely flipped. Omega-6s come from things like the seed oils, like canola oil, vegetable oil, stuff like that, that is used for practically everything. Whereas omega-3s come from things like salmon and olive oil. Definitely try to get a lot of omega-3s from your diet, but I've found that sometimes it's just hard. So I have started supplementing with omega-3s. And this is something that should be good and helpful to keep inflammation down, which is something that could contribute to painful and heavy periods. It's important for you to note, though, as I'm talking about this, that figuring out your heavy periods and working to improve them is going to depend a lot on what is causing your heavy periods. Heavy periods are a symptom, not a diagnosis in and of themselves. There's something that's causing your periods to be heavy. For example, If you had high estrogen levels throughout your cycle, estrogen is something that builds up the uterine lining. So your uterine lining would be getting built up too much, and therefore you would have thicker uterine lining to get rid of, and therefore a heavier period. So you might find that you have high estrogen levels and you would want to figure out what's causing that and how you can get your estrogen levels a little lower. That's just a random example and a reason why it's helpful to understand what it is that's causing your heavy periods. The last supplement that I've been taking is the Egg Quality Support Supplement by Needed. Now, this is something that is, of course, for egg quality. Supporting your egg quality is really important because what's good for your egg quality is going to be good for your cycles in general, and you want to be building healthy eggs, healthy follicles to grow and change into a healthy corpus luteum, which produces progesterone. A healthy corpus luteum is going to produce a healthy amount of progesterone. And we need healthy levels of both of our important hormones, estrogen and progesterone, to make sure our uterine lining is being built up and maintained the way it should be in order to have a good and healthy period. That is all that I have for you in this video today. I just want to thank you once again for clicking on this video, for watching it all the way through. I would love to hear from you. I love and cherish every one of your comments. So if you have any questions for me or if this video helped you out at all, I would love to hear from you. And if you visit my Etsy store, if you purchase any of my products, I would love to hear from you so I can thank you. I'm so excited to hear if any of these products help you. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.